Welcome everybody to Tales from the Tackle Shop, episode 19 of season 2, which has been weird, hasn't it, Alex, doing all this? It's been very weird, but we've somehow managed to cobble our way through it.
Yeah, talk about some random rubbish.
Oh, I'll tell you what I saw today. Jurgen Klopp is second favourite to get sacked.
Who's first? Steve
Yeah,
Bruce?
Steve Bruce, yeah.
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 Well, I don't mind swapping.
I can't believe they're going to sack Jurgen Klopp. That must be miles away from that happening. But there we go.
Strange. Football's up and down this year. It's like everything. Everything's just different, isn't it?
The whole world's different. It's gone a bit mad. I'll mention a few mad things in a minute because, yeah, everything's gone mad. The fishing's gone mad. Football's mad. Everything's gone a bit mad. I think we've even got something mad happening on Oprah Winfrey tonight, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah.
Madness. I'm trying something different, but I'm just looking at my camera and it's just going mental. What is it doing?
I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't got. I'm not using the GoPro. Let me just sit. Yeah, so everybody listening or watching us on YouTube, we're trying something a bit different, and the tech is letting us down badly at the minute. My camera keeps going out of focus. I don't know why. Anyway, we'll continue regardless. Right, buddy. So before I forget, I don't think I've told you this, but I'll tell you what I'm telling everybody. Had a Zoom meeting last week with a lady called Rachel Brown who works for Cambridgeshire Acre, which is a charity, and she's organised a river care litter pick group that involves a lady called Lindsay Stratford from River Care, James Crisp, who's a very keen canoeist, but is also who works for the Environment Agency, but he's on the panel or the group as an individual at the minute. We've got Peter Beckenham from Middle Level Commissioners. Obviously, he's a conservation officer there. And we've got Christy Wilson from Hunts District Council. So that's really good. So what's happening, they invited me on as part of the Fenland Guardian scheme to tell them what we've been doing with our litter picking. So we're going to do some more regional work under that banner as well. So that will be really, really good. So that's an offshoot that's just started from all the hard work everyone's been doing from the Fenland Guardian scheme. So that just shows how if you get people engaged in something, it does have a massive offshoot. Yes, that's been really, really good. Now, obviously, we keep plugging the litter pick that we're going to do on the weekend of the 20th and 21st of March. I'm going to put a little video clip in the middle of this somewhere just to show everybody what some people have already done. We've had volunteers already go out and pick up litter because they can't make that weekend and they wanted to help out. So that will just give people a flavour of what's happening. And just to remind everybody, we can't organise a group meeting because of lockdown and all the restrictions. It's very much an individual thing, and if you can get out there and do your own thing in a safe way on a local waterway, and then just send in some pictures or video clips to talesfromthetackshop@gmail.com or send them through Tales from the Tackle Shop page using the messenger, and then we'll put a montage together. So can't organise a montage. Can't organise a group thing like we want to because of the restrictions. So it's going to have to be, I'm afraid, everyone doing their own thing and going out and doing it in a safe way. And I think I mentioned a couple of times now, getting fed up with mentioning it, but it's the world we live in. If anyone's taking photographs of children, really need kind of like non-identifiable, so backs of heads. So when we put it on the internet, it can't be construed anyway, but in a safe way. So I just needed to mention that one. Right, mate. So that's that. So that's a really positive thing that's happening. Have you heard about the swans that have been targeted?
I did see on the Facebook page briefly bits and pieces, but I haven't looked into it in too much detail.
Well, something else has happened today. A swan today has been a swan near Benwick has been found that a lady has. She also lives on the river, and one of the swans has been shot at.
Oh right.
They think by an air rifle. I mean, I don't know if it's linked, but people might not know what I'm talking about. End of last week or this weekend. Um, I'll be honest. There were two remaining individuals, and they know what nationality they were because they've already been kicked off the water twice last season. Were ejected from it must be the River Nene at Oundle, and they were trying to catch swans using. It sounded like treble hooks baited with bread.
Right.
Crazy. And I know there was an incident at, I think it's Linford Lakes at Swanton Morley, where two swans were found in like a commercial net. One was had drowned and was dead, and the other one was trapped with it. And coincidentally, Alex Thompson, EA enforcement officer, phoned me today about the set lines, what we found outside on the river over the weekend. And he was on his way up there to investigate this one further. So I don't know what is going on, but it sounds like swans have been targeted at the minute, obviously for food. And we had a third incident at Benwick today, or the swan was discovered today, that had been shot by air rifle. And my camera is going absolutely mental. Mate, we need some professional IT help. I don't know what's going on. Yeah. Anyway, but that is awful, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely. I mean, obviously you got the bird flu as well. That I don't know if that's still about. Is it? Because there was quite a concern about that. You know, if you see swans and different bits and bobs, is that all sort of finished now? Or?
I don't know. I mean, where I live, obviously middle of town, there was a breeding pair and 7 cygnets. And I was talking to Alex about this today. And the last 2 days, I've only seen the cob. Don't know what's going on. And he's really aggressive. He's got his wings out and he's very aggressive to everybody. And he's charging up and down the river. And last night, a family were walking over the bridge and put a load of bread in for the swans and the ducks. And again, it was only just him. He was charging about. And then a load of ducks, they were behaving very strangely, flew in on the bread, 15, 20 seconds, and they just flew off again. I don't know if something's happened, or I don't want to accuse people of doing things when I haven't seen it, but I don't know where the other swans have gone. And those ducks are behaving very strangely, so something weird is happening. I mentioned it to Alex, and he suggested phoning 101, but I don't really want to do that unless I know something for definite has happened. Yeah, but weird times, buddy. I mean, while we're on it, one of the reasons why we started watching out for the swans is that Saturday night, one of the anglers at the front here actually found a couple of dead lines pegged into the bank, which had braid attached to the. I think they were made out of ash or bit of willow. These pegs and had braid attached to the pegs, and there was mono attached to the braid, which had what looked like size 14 hooks on the end. So crazy times. I don't know what's going on, but I just yeah. Something's not right. Something's happening, and we're not spotting it because there are things afoot, and you can just tell, can't you, when something's not right. I mean, just finally, I don't want to be the harbinger of doom, but I've been trying to get in touch with Ash Brown. Bless him, he works full time and is secretary of King's Lynn. The last 2 weeks, they've had a £20 plus pike killed on the cut-off. They've got the card by anglers. They've got the car details, and they're looking for them. So obviously they're going to find them and ban them for life. They've got their bailiffs at the minute bailiffing a no fishing area of the cut-off, and they're just trying to protect it from people who are going down there and trying to remove the pike. So it's not even their water, but they're having to bailiff it because they've got all these issues, and they're finding quite a few unlicensed inflatable boats on the Ouse, the relief channel, and the cut-off. So there's a lot going on. Oh, I missed one other thing from the list that you sent me. They've had carp taken for one of the club lakes. Right. Yeah. So they're really up against it at the minute, and they're trying to sort things out. And on top of it, they've had the fly tipping. If you remember,
I was going to say.
Yeah.
I thought that was what you was going to mention. No. To be honest,
Morton's Bridge has had to be closed off because of the fly tipping that happened recently, and I think a lot of people who use that are really upset because they can't use the access point. But middle level have had to close it because of the fly tipping, and it looks like a lot of it's been these fly tippers are going down to Crooked Chimney and dumping it down there. So we've got a lot of things going on. It's weird times, buddy. I don't know if it's the furlough scheme, whether we've got too many people who aren't at work and they're just... Or if we're being totally honest, if we've got a mix of different cultures, and some cultures are that food and birds are for food. That's right, fish and birds are for food. Yeah, not for anything else. It just seems that maybe because we've got lots of eyes and ears around at the minute, we're spotting far more things than we did in the past. I don't know. Who knows? But
possibly,
yeah.
More people walking about, going for long walks, walking where they wouldn't normally.
Yeah. You're getting the point. Well, finally, this point, just finally, I am doing a bit of bailiffing for some friends last week, and I had to tell 3 anglers that they were fishing on private water, trespassing, and they're infringing lockdown rules, and they couldn't be where they were. They went without any problem at all until they got to the access point, and then one of them started turning around, abusing me, and tried to spit at me. Just think, what is going on? You know, if you're in the wrong.
Well, was he an old gold pupil or something? Or
no, mate, he was.
No.
If I put, say, English second language,
yeah,
they just didn't like being told what to do, and they got to a certain point and thought they were safe, and yeah, I just had to remove myself from the situation. I thought, this is only going to end one way, but it's a bit bleak out there, buddy. It's not a nice environment to be in at the minute. No, too much going on, and we kind of somehow need to get on top of it. Anyway, I didn't want to start off this with all doom and gloom, but
gloom merchant.
I know, but I was meant to go today, and I just couldn't be bothered because every time I've been at the minute, it just seems there's some nonsense to sort out. So I will have a go tomorrow morning. No, right, let's look at something more positive then. So. Cheesy Bob's been out catching those carp again.
Yeah, cheesy. Yeah. Well, I think there's 3 different carp come out of the old Nene then.
They're different fish, aren't they?
I know. Yeah, different fish, yeah. I think Bob's had one, young Billy Smalley's had one, and I know some guys at Fish March before Christmas, and they had a little mirror about 1.5 pound sort of size, so there's definitely 3 different ones. Which is a bit odd, but obviously someone put them in there, or you'd think with the amount of matches and stuff like that we have on there, they'd have been caught before, wouldn't you? But,
they're probably... Yes, they if they'd been there last year and the year before, you guys would have caught them, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think Steve Winters caught one in a match. I think it was about this time last year, in the last match of the season. That was from where we say peg 1, so right up the other end. And that was more like an F1 type looking carp. But these are proper, like the one Bob had looked a bit like a wild sort of carp.
Right. Yeah.
Quite long fins and not long, lean sort of look about it. So that'd be interesting, won't it?
Well, that'd be nice if they could have a chance to grow on and get some double figure fish moving through the town centre on the match days. Would be quite interesting.
Yeah.
You guys would be what was it?
Yeah. Fishing your 4x12, dinking some squats in, and then just going to strike, and your number 3 elastic goes everywhere. I don't think you got a chance really, but you never know.
No, but I always think it's such a. That river runs so hard now. You think it could hold a head of chub?
Well, yeah, I have actually caught chub from there before, but that was when I was still at school. I can remember used to catch an odd one down Nene Parade. There must have only been 3 or 4 of them, but obviously we don't fish Nene Parade anymore. And I think we was doing exams, so it was year 11, and me and my mate Johnny Beavis went and sat down there. I think we had like 2 days where we had no exams. We went and sat down there and just took hemp and tears, and I caught one about 8 ounces on a tear.
Wow.
That's the only I've ever caught. I think I had about 28 pound of roach that day, but when you're sort of 15, 16, that's like, whoa, quite a lot of fish. Yeah. But yeah, it was a nice little mint looking chub. There might be an odd one kicking about there still, but I can't see it, to be honest, mate. I really can't. We just don't get them, do we?
No, they all died off, and I can't imagine how they got in there, but they haven't had a chance to take hold, which is a shame. But
well, when you think about it, you've got obviously Whittlesea Bower, which is at the back of the leisure centre there, is full of great big chub. You walk through there in the summer, and there's loads of them everywhere, and they're proper submarine chub. And that's all the same system. Do you know what I mean? They only got to go through the lock and down Cock Bank, and that's Marchtown Centre. It's the same flow.
yeah,
So, but I don't think they see them in the winter as much there. So whether they go upstream more towards the river or into the stand ground, I really don't know. But there's a lot of chub in that Whittlesea Bower. Hell of a lot.
yeah. It would be lovely if had just to get something a bit bigger coming through, because it just seems like the nursery out here. But it's a great. I mean, the amount of rudd that were caught last week, and that when that hot weather came, that warmer weather, I should say, and
It's time of year, isn't it? Bream, tench, and rudd.
yeah,
Well, not so much bream, but definitely tench and rudd. They get on the move, don't they? I think once that sort of spring warmth comes and the bottom starts to come up, and you start getting the not algae, but it's like a silt stuff that floats up from the bottom, don't you? And once you start seeing that, I always think it's best time of year for the tench and rudd. Definitely.
the sunlight must activate them. It must get them going.
Yeah.
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 Talking of tench, he did it while I was talking to him.
Oh, cheesy. Bob
Yeah.
Perch Tench.
He managed. I don't know how he does it. He caught a tench out there as well. And I thought, good God, about £1.5 pound, this little thing. I mean, he never. he just. And the other thing is, well, this is. I've stood behind him twice now, and it's happened both times. He's managed to break sections of his pole.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
the first time that the extension handle kind of snapped at the joint, and he went,
Yeah.
"That'll be all right. I'll fix that when I get home." And then last week it was the second off the top kit, second section.
Number 4.
I don't know how that broke, but he went, "That'll be all right. I'll cut that back. That will fit."
That'll be alright.
Yeah. He's done it twice. Just brilliant. Just doesn't worry about it. I'll fix it when I get home. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Right. How are things going in the tackle shop? Is it booming?
It's not booming because obviously people aren't allowed in. I think getting people sort of coming in. Oh, can I come in the shop? They're like, no. You know, it's non-essential retail, and it's frightening, really. But I know we're coming out of lockdown. A lot of people think we're out of it now, almost. And it's frustrating for me because you want to let them in because you know they want to spend money and look round and stuff like that. But it's April the 12th, I think, all being well, people can come in the shop. Stock-wise, if I haven't got it, it's probably because the manufacturers haven't got it. So I'm pretty good on stock, to be honest. So when the boom does happen, we should be ready, hopefully. Got plenty of everything, really. I think the biggest problem is sort of your bigger items, poles, you know, seat boxes, stuff that is going to take a while to come in. Big items that take up container space, to be honest.
Yeah. And you're going to have to get it in. I mean,
luggage.
Yeah, on April the 12th, are you restricted to how many can be in the shop?
Yes, I mean, obviously we're quite tight in here anyway for space. We've got stuff everywhere, you know, you're falling over gear. We've got stuff on top of gear, which is frustrating. I'd love to be able to, you know, have it all laid out nicely and be able to walk around. But to get the gear, that's how we have to be, you know, we have to as much stuff as possible. But yeah, we'll restrict it to probably 2 people at a time. So yeah, roll on April the 12th, really, mate.
That'd be good. I've got this feeling that fishing on commercials is going to go through the roof.
Well, I think, it's close season's always a busy time anyway, for us, because obviously it's close season. People can't fish anywhere else. So I think with COVID and the restrictions being lifted, people haven't been out. They're going to want to travel, you know, and catch plenty of fish. So I can see it being really popular. I mean, the first open match, which is the 3rd of April, the first Saturday open match, I think we've got 60 anglers booked in already. So it just proves, doesn't it, that people want to get out. And even, you know, we've got river anglers, sort of your drain anglers that wouldn't normally fish commercials. they're even itching and keen to get out. And as soon as Boris announced that there was going to be no more match fishing on the rivers, I think a lot of people have just straight away just switched then to looking at the commercial scene until June, and then back on the rivers and that. I mean, there's so many matches. I mean, like last year there was, I think the Trent, there's a match on the Trent every single day of the week if you want it, and it's a decent match. Natural venues have definitely come back, and you've got River Fests and Feeder Masters again this year, so there's so many big competitions which is going to spread your anglers out a little bit. But for the tackle trade, for me, because we're obviously match heavy, it's the more big events there are, the more people get keen, the more money they spend. For a big money competition qualifier, they're going to buy, the commercial heads are going to buy a gallon of casters in the height of summer and make sure this is right and that's right. And the same with your natural anglers. If they've got a double header, one day they might be doing a feeder masters at Ferry Meadows on a load of fish meal ground, making a few casters and worms, and the next day they've got a River Fest on the Yare in Norfolk where they need 3 or 4 pints of casters. So it's going to be a busy summer for everyone, I think.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? We do talk about things before we come on air, and what we're going to do using this, the podcast, and also using the YouTube channel, and also using Tackle and Bait's Facebook pages and your Facebook page, and the team Daiwa Tackle and Bait's Facebook page, we're going to be pushing the commercial quite heavily, aren't we, over the next few months?
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously we are more at the minute. We're more drain and pipe heavy, aren't we? That's what our love is. But in the close season, people want to find out about our commercial fisheries. We've got some fantastic commercials: rookery, decoy, float fish farm. 3 big commercials, and then you've got sort of your natural gravel pits, Sewells, Brampton do a ticket, Roswell pits, the Ferry Meadows. We're quite lucky in that sense. I mean, it'd be nice to have a few more bigger lakes where you can go and chuck a feeder and catch skimmers. I mean, obviously we've got Ferry Meadows, which is probably the most known one in the country now, apart from Southfield Reservoir for feeder flinging. But yeah, it'd be nice to have a few more natural lakes that you can go and catch some different species. So I'm interested to see how this Hampton Lake fishes. Have you seen what they catch over there?
I know Andy Shortland, he organised a match, didn't he, before the last lockdown?
Yeah.
And all those rudd came out, if you remember, wasn't it? £60?
That's it, yeah. I mean, hopefully I've got booked in. I don't know if I have or not. If I haven't, I haven't. I was a bit late to the party on that one. But I thought, I quite fancy that. Just, you just think, I want to have a go at that. Just catching £50 a rudd on a whip, or maybe £60, £70 a tench on the pole. So I think it's one of the venues. I don't think you can just go there and get it right. I think you need to assess what's in your peg a bit. And I think if you're going to do one, you can't do the other. You've either got to set your stall out to catch 1,000 fish for £50 or whatever it is, or catch 25 tench for £60. I don't know. I think you've got to assess that and make your decisions early. But they look, nice big lake, something different. It's good to see all these little clubs appearing, like the Brampton Club. For years, you never really heard anything about them. Obviously, influx in anglers. A lot of anglers don't want to fish commercial fisheries. They want to fish more natural venues, or they're on a budget, 20, 25 quid a year. I don't know. I actually don't know what a club book is for Brampton. And you've got a lot of venues to go at. And they're the sort of things you want to carry on looking at as well, don't we? Along with, obviously, the commercial scene.
Yeah. So if people keep an eye on what we're doing, we're going to try and do a few videos from the pleasure angler's perspective. So Alex can take the mick out of my old quiver tip rod and the little crappy coffee grinder reels I've got. Yeah. And we'll also do it from the match perspective. Right, I'll tell you what we're going to do, buddy, because what you're going to explain about how to use chopped worm, aren't you, after the little middle section?
Yeah. I think obviously time of year, it's like we're saying, prime time, tench, rudd. Just go a little, sort of touch on a few different bits and bobs.
Yeah. What we'll do then, I'm going to stop us talking now. I'm just going to put on so everyone can see just a little bit of the litter pick montage that I did the other day, and we shoved on Facebook with some of the volunteers that have already been out. So we're just going to put a little break here, and then what we'll do when we come back, Alex is going to explain some of the worm rigs that he would use right back on the natural venues for the last 2 or 3 days of the season, and I suppose, buddy, they'll be relevant for fishing commercials as well.
Not really, no. The way you fish worms on natural venues, especially for bigger fish, is a bit different to commercial fishing. But yeah, commercial fishing is a bit more sort of not finesse, but yeah, totally different. Yeah. I would say, yeah.
I'll just shut up then. That'd be easy, wouldn't it? Just let you get on with it. Right. Yes. We'll have a little stop here, and then we will come back momentarily. Okay, we're back. Second section of the podcast. I'm not going to mention litter anymore in this podcast, I promise, but I will next time. Alex, you are going to explain to everybody how you would rig fishing worms on a natural venue, not on a commercial.
Yeah.
Just a natural venue. Right, I'm going to shut up and let you explain to everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Right, so worm fishing. This time of year, the fish are on the move or waking up, getting ready for spawning, so they're quite hungry. I'll just talk about probably tench and rudd in one sense, and maybe if there's a few perch knocking about I'd probably fish for those. So you can do that all on one rig. I mean, it's really simple fishing, especially when there's no matches at the minute. To be honest, catching a roach and pleasure fish is a bit boring, isn't it? So you might as well try and get something that's going to pull your elastic out and just something a bit different, something that you don't probably do in a match. So obviously this time of year, you've got the Ramsey Narrows on the 40-foot, March Bypass, the 20-foot at the footbridge is another good venue. Where else? Loads of different venues really where you're going to catch tench. Normally, I would probably go for dendrobinas, so half a kilo is plenty. Sometimes you might want to take a kilo if you're on a pile of fish. I prefer dendras for rudd and tench, just for the simple fact I think tench like the smaller pieces and they like to sort of search for the bait more and sort of graze. Whereas if you was targeting perch, I'd use lobworms, just because I think perch go for the attraction more. They sort of attack it. They're quite aggressive, as you know, with your fishing you do, Andy. They're a strange fish. I think with perch you can sometimes have them in your peg, and then all of a sudden you catch one, and then you catch two or three like really quick. And I've always found when you're targeting perch, they don't like bait on top of their heads. Almost you're better off just leaving it and not topping it up. Whereas with tench and rudd, they're hungry, and you can top up, go somewhere else in your peg, drop back on it, and they come straight onto the feed. Whereas with perch, I think that you're better off fishing little, like getting one worm and just one lobworm, mincing it up, putting it in somewhere and fishing it like that, rather than getting the big pot out and putting a load of bait in on the bottom.
Well, you're exactly right. Let me just stop you there for a sec, because like I said, Cheesy Fitch Tench was out here the other day, and we literally we did it on purpose. We were casting into the same spot, but I was coming from a different angle, and I was using a little plastic, what would you call it, a finesse stick, about 5 centimeters long. It floats, so it's you use a weight that I was using something called a Texas rig, and the hook would stick up off the bottom like so as the the plastic would rise, but it'd still be on the bottom, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And Cheesy was using a natural worm, and the worm was far better than using this plastic lure. But
Yeah.
I was holding it still, and when Cheesy had caught 2 or 3 fish, if I cast in there as well, just held it still, they were whacking it. And it's exactly what you just said. They were looking for these objects. They didn't. The worm they can smell obviously, and they can see the worm wriggling, but this plastic just sits there and just kind of vibrates, and they were homing in on it and hitting it real hard. So I think you're exactly right what you just said. Perch seem to want to hunt, find individual food items.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the other thing. When you've got to assess what you're targeting, you know, in a match, you get your peg and you get your draw, but normally, if there's a big fish about, you'll see signs of a big fish. You know, you might see one swirl or top, or they'll show themselves. But sometimes you'll put your rig in, you'll just lower it in nice and steady, and you'll get sort of a weird bite, like a line bite where there's a big fish feeding. Whereas with perch, it's like you lower your rig in, and you know if there's perch there, you'll catch it straight away. Like literally, you'll lower your rig in, hold it, show it the bait, jig it almost, so your worm sort of does that, and as it drops down, you put it, sort of sit it, and all of a sudden it'll just go up, and it just carry on going. Or if it's a proper big perch, it'll go the opposite way like that.
Yeah.
So, then you have a big billy on the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean perch this time they're probably more worried about spawning, aren't they, than they are about feeding. But again, you know, might be a little something to think about earlier on in the season, probably before Christmas when the water's really clear, it's cold.
They're not spawning yet, mate. I'll tell you what, this is something I do despair at some anglers. They don't seem to see what's going on. Pike round here aren't spawning yet. They are
Weird.
no, they're not ready. They're feeding really hard. I reckon they're going to be on it next 2 or 3 weeks. The perch are getting like real fat bellies, but they're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
And you can tell it's not there. But people see a pike striking the side this time of year, and they think, oh, they're spawning. No, they're not. They're not quite there yet. Their vents aren't filled out. They're not filled out back end. And these perch are really hard on the munch because they're getting ready, and it will be the predators will spawn first, and then obviously we'll get the tench, the roach and rudd come in afterwards. But it's interesting that sunlight we had last week really got everything fired up.
It did, yeah.
The pike I've had recently, they are eating so hard, it's unbelievable. You have to strike, you have to wind down really quick when you get a run. And I'm using huge baits, and I'm winding down a lot quicker than I would do in the middle of winter. Normally this time of year, you get lots of drop runs because they're really finicky because they are in the throes or just about to go, but they're not quite ready yet. But there's a load of experts on Facebook. Oh, they know everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry I interrupted you, but
yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. Fishing worms for perch, you got to give them a chance to find it, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. Show them the bait, we say.
Yeah.
Show them it. Obviously, the fish you're targeting are hungry fish. That you're not having fish small hooks as such. You're using big baits. They're aggressive. They're wanting the bait. So you don't want to be, mamsy-pamsying about. Elastic wise, I've just put some elastic down here. There's a rule 13 Ola or black hydro is absolutely perfect. You want something initially because there's not so much weed about. The weed's pretty much gone now, so you want something so you can set the hook because you're using big old hooks. And the other thing is you've got to strike. You're not pellet dangling. You're fishing the natural fish, and you want to set that hook, get the barb in, so you're not going to lose them. And that's the other thing, on natural venues. Some anglers proper strike, proper the poles going up in the air, they're setting the hook. And to me, people that don't strike, they lose more fish, and also depends on what hooks you're using. Everyone has their own styles, don't they? And for me, I think I can fish faster and being more aggressive, in the strike, you can, in one motion, you can strike and shit back. But, sometimes when people come in the shop and say, oh, can you recommend hook? The first thing I sort of think about is, what sort of angler they are. Some anglers are really aggressive, and some anglers are more
methodical, I suppose is the word, sort of just lifts into it and stuff like that. So those sort of angles, you're probably better off using a bit finer hooks.
Whereas an angler that's more aggressive and up for it, and you're better off using a bigger hook because you're going to set the hook. You know, whereas if you get a little strike, you're just going to hook them gently and a bit of slack and they come off. So that's one thing to bear in mind. On natural venues, you're using a barb. It's not like you're pellet fishing on a commercial where just lifting your ankle and the fish is on. These fish you need to set the hook because you've got a barb on you.
Well, Cheesy Bob is a perfect exponent of this, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, Perch Tench. He's got it off to an art now.
Yeah, he won't mess about. Size 14, straight on.
Oh, he's scaled down then. Yeah.
Well, you've got to kind of match your hook size to the bait you're using, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, there is a little bit more. There is a reason why certain anglers definitely catch more big fish than others. It might be the fact that they do it more, or it might be the fact that they do it better than anyone else.
Yeah.
You know, people go, "Oh, they're lucky," but why is it always the same anglers that catch them?
Yeah. They set the stall out. Yeah, they know what they're doing.
Oh, yeah, you got a lucky tench, but he always gets a lucky tench. So there's something to look into. That's the way I see it. Hook wise, I like B711s. I know we've talked about it on the podcast before. They're strong. They've got decent spade, so you can get plenty of whips up to your spade. Again, big barb on them. Worm ain't going to come off. Big strike. And to be honest, the only time they're going to come off is if you get bitten off by an eel or there's a dodgy weakness in your line. You know, I've never had a B711 bend on me, to be honest. Not fishing around here anyway. If you was, some people like a nice wide gape shape, B560s, brilliant hook. You know, I sell loads of them in the shop. I used to use that a lot, but I think with the worm, I don't know, I just don't like that shape. I tend to, me personally, in my head, they just blunted a bit quick. Whereas, 711s, you can get them out of the packet. And
will you? When I bream fish with using Dendrobina, I always tip the bait with a maggot just to stop the worm from wriggling off.
Yeah.
Do you bother doing that, or do you?
I think I'm going to give one of Bob's secrets here. It's the best. I think the best hook bait for tench. If you're out to catch a tench, it'd be get a medium-sized dendra, nip it in half. You hook through the bit you've nipped in half. I mean, there's another one in it. Some people do it the opposite way around, so they have the dent that way. But to me, you want that on your hook because they're going to go for that more. And then I just tip it with a pinky.
Yeah.
And I think if I had to put, faith in one hook bait to catch a tench, that's what it'd be. Bream, again, you could do the old combo, worm tip with a red maggot. I think red worms, 3 or 4 red worms is probably the best hook bait to give us a green. But perch, I think a lobby tail, a nice sort of chunk of lobby tail is good. And the tench as well, double caster is a really good bait. Especially when you've caught a few, you've had a real good day, but there's a few more left in the keg, and you think, how can I get a few more? Just drop on a bit of a lighter rig. When the venue's seen a lot of worms, especially around here, I always find if you're going to catch them, you'll catch them on casters on a lighter rig. Scale down your hook pan, a little bit lighter elastic, and you can normally get a few like that. So we talked about hooks. So floats, depending on the depth really, obviously using quite big bait. So if I was on the 20 foot, for example, which is obviously top 4 feet, nearly top 5s in places, I tend to go for that, which is a mid. The line runs through the middle of the body. That's super strong. Got a decent long bristle, so you can shot it down, and if you want to hold back, you can hold back. You can use a back shot with them. They're brilliant on sort of depth 6 foot plus, really. No, probably 5 foot plus, I would say. I've got them from a gram up to 4 gram, really. Once you start going above 4 gram, you're better off using a flat float to try and keep it still, or a feeder. So yeah, straightforward on that. for venues like Benwick that's silting up quite a bit, and even Marchtown Centre, you're only looking at probably 4 foot maximum down the middle, but you still want a float that's quite heavy, so it's going to keep your bait static. So, I mean, if you imagine for comparison, that's a gram Menta Pisa, and that there is a gram AS9. So you see how much shorter it is.
Yeah.
You can see that
Yeah.
down the camera. So when I'm fishing Benwick and March, that's the float I'd use. It's nice, thick bristle.
Yeah.
It's a flexi wire stem as well, so it's pretty stable. Especially if Benwick does get wind on it a lot. March does, but it's not as bad. And they're the float I'd use. So it's short, stable. You're going to read your bites easy if you're getting line bites. The other thing I used to do,
you know, when you sort of mad keen and that, and when you sort of roaches your favourite, you tend to dot your floats down all the time. So, for me, after a while, I start to leave a bit more showing. You can read a line bite, read everything you can. And when you're fishing for big fish like that, you've got decent droppers on anyway, so any slight movement and that float's going to go under.
So that's another thing. So main lines, no need to mess about. 018, 016 main line. I use a tournament rig line for all my mainline hook lengths. The other thing as well is sometimes it depends what sort of bottom you got. When some venues you've got a lot of weed, so before Christmas you're trying to find holes in the weed, little clean spots where you can get a rig in, and you're using a short lash. Whereas this time of year, there's no advantage of having a short lash. If anything, it's a disadvantage because you've got your pole over the top of their heads. Especially when you sat there with it in your spray bar and you're holding it dead still. I find, unless you've got to get it in a small gap, you're better off having a longer lash. Obviously, pick your marker, something that ain't going to move, like a cow on the far bank or something, you know, or a pike, or, you know, something like that. Always line up with something that ain't going to move, and I just, that's what I do, really, mate. That's what I do. I keep it simple.
I think also with these bigger fish on worms, you have to let the bite develop a bit more, don't you?
Yeah.
I know if I'm fishing for big perch, you're going to laugh, but I count to 5 once the float's gone under.
Yeah.
I can see them trundling off with it. We're talking about fish over £2 here.
Yeah.
They're trundling off with the worm, and they're actually, you can imagine that they're actually trying to get the whole worm in their mouth.
Yeah.
The number of times I've struck after 3 or 4 seconds and you hook nothing. I'm not deep hooking them.
No.
But you just watch it all trundle off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fish on. Whereas if you strike too early, you've got big old lobworm on, and they've got
definitely you might not get it again. You missed your chance, haven't you?
Yeah.
You know, I always say when the float goes under, so you watch the bite develop and you get a little indication. You know what fish is going to be pretty much from the bite, and it goes under. And I just say, God save the queen, and then literally off queen. That's it. It's on.
Yeah, and you can see the float moving under the water, can't you?
Especially with big perch. If you're fishing for big perch and that on worms, you know it goes against the flow. It's like, oh, that's perch, clunk.
Yeah, and also it saves you hooking into a fish on line bites as well, doesn't it? If you just I mean, like, you're using sort of 8, 9 droppers, so you're using positive droppers, so you see all the indications. But just going back to, obviously, I was sort of explaining about fishing in the weed and stuff like that. I always find with worm fishing, you want to use not a light rig, but the lightest you can get away with, and keeping your bait static and knowing that your bait is on a clean spot on the bottom is the key thing. Yeah.
You know, plumbing up it makes a big thing on any of the drains. Normally, looking for shelves. If you can reach the far shelf or the bottom of the far shelf is always the best area to fish, just because I think the fish are going to be patrolling them shelves, and you will catch, you know, if it's got a bit of colour or you've got more sort of, I don't know, more weed or something on the inside, you might catch on the near side shelf, but normally it's the far side shelf at an angle, sort of out of the way of your peg, especially if you was in a match, you'd put it out of the way so when you roach fishing, you're not dragging fish over the top of your of where big fish want to feed, sort of quietly and out of the way. So if for example, the venue is Benwick, and Benwick doesn't move, does it? So 9 times out of 10, I'd feed my worms, chop worms and casters, and a few maggots maybe. Sometimes I put more casters in than I do worms. It just depends on the venue and how much stick it's had. If it's had a lot of worms, I tend to put more casters in than worms. And if I know I've got a nice clean area, I'll cup it in. So I'll probably put 150 ml in at the start, knowing that I'm going to look on it after about 20 minutes. And that would be the best scenario. Sometimes you have to feed it with a bait dropper, just because you're trying to get in a nice tight little hole. And you know what Benwick's like, you get cod and eelgrass and a bit, not so much eelgrass, but you get a lot of cod. And if you might get one boat go through, and it just like, it changes,
push it around, yeah.
So it's always worth plumbing up a couple of lines the same depth that you know are clear at the start.
Would you use any ground bait if you're targeting fish on
that's the other thing. I wouldn't use ground bait to try and catch tench. You can use soil. I mean, definitely for perch. Perch love a bit of soil. Don't know why. But this time of year, no. I would just use a bait dropper. So if I'm wanting to get bait to the bottom in a nice tight area, I just use a bait dropper, mate. That sort of size normally. Sometimes you get the old go hard or go home bait dropper out at the start. They keep everything nice and neat.
Yeah.
Some venues you have to be careful with a bait dropper because they're really silty.
Yeah.
And you're putting your bait dropper in, and time you've sort of jigged it down and done all this, it won't open because the bottom's so soft, and you got to be careful that you're not putting your worms into the bottom almost, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, they just crawl away into the silt. You never see them again.
Well,
you won't see them anyway, but you know what I mean. The fish won't see them again.
Yeah.
But Alex, that's really great advice. So it's been really mild it's been really mild during the day, hasn't it? On the last couple of weeks now, and things have come alive. So guys, by the time you hear the podcast on Wednesday, you've got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Might be worth just having a bit of fishing, targeting something a bit bigger, back end of the season on the worms.
I think so.
Yeah, the price of worms at Tackle and Baits has gone up 50% for the last week.
They need to go up, really. They're too cheap. They are too cheap. I don't know whether that with Brexit and bits and bobs, I don't know how that's going to affect it. But at the minute, they're still the same. They're still £15 a kilo or £10 per half. So, and lobbies are very expensive. I can't do a lot about that. But just moving back to the old bait dropper. Obviously, if the river's flowing, I'd use a bait dropper as well. Just because you know your bait's exactly where you want it in the hole.
Yeah.
And a little trick that I sometimes put more worms, bit of blood meal, not too much. I think the old tench and perch do like that. Not too much, just a little bit. Just gives it that little bit of scent as well. So we've talked about floats. Moving down, obviously you've got to talk about rig, and you probably can't see that, Andy, but in the GoPro probably can. My rig's really simple. So obviously you've got your float, an inline Olivet, a couple of shots just locking it. Then we've got and then we've got
hold on, buddy. I've lost you completely.
Alright, we've got a 9-inch hook length.
Right, start again from your. Sorry, mate. Start again from your Olivet because the phone went all weird.
So we've got Olivet.
Yeah.
If you see that, it's a shot.
No, I've lost you again. He's completely gone now. We have lost him. When I lost you, you were just explaining about your rig.
Yeah.
Yeah, start from there.
Right. So, before Fenland Boomer come in action, we were talking about rigs, weren't we? Length.
Yeah.
So Olivet we have sort of 10 centimetre hook length, 2 number 8 droppers, so positive droppers, so you can read all your indications. And what I was going to say is, on days when you've got a lot of weed in your peg and you need your Olivet down, you're probably less likely to catch a perch because, like what we were saying, they come in and attack it. So if you are targeting perch and the best scenario, you've not got much weed, you're nice sort of clean spot, just put your Olivet up a bit higher than you would normally. And just hold your rig, and then so your Olivet's sort of straight, tight to your Olivet, and then just gradually lower it in, and that's the best way of catching perch, definitely. So move your Olivet up for perch, and for tench, I normally have it sort of, 18 inches away, something like that. And then obviously if it's weedy, just move it as down as you need to, depending on how weedy it is. The other thing with worm fishing is the length of your hook length. I find the best sort of length on the drains for roach fishing is about 5 inch, whereas with big fish, you've got to imagine you've got more line on the deck, you want your shot a bit further away. So the smaller the fish is, the more finicky the fish, you want your shot as close to the hook as possible. So obviously without losing the finesse about it, if it's too close, then you don't get a bite anyway. So it's finding the right balance. And with big fish, and different methods as well. So the majority of mine are 8 inch for worm fishing. 8 and 10 inch is what I normally use, but I've got some a bit longer. If I was using flat floats, you want a bit more line on the bottom, because obviously with flat floats it's in flowing water, you get tend to spin ups. And if you have a too short hook length, you get the old twizzle ups and tangles, and it's quite frustrating. But I'll show for the camera, this is my worm hook box. You can probably see the different lengths. And there's some big hooks in there as well. So if I was fishing a full lobby on a Trent or something like that on a flat boat, you want a size 11 or a proper big hook. But the other thing is, big fish, you don't want short hook lengths because you're gonna see too much almost and strike at the wrong indications. So that one there, I've tied that one up. That's an eel hook length. So it's a small hook, but on quite a long one. So you can be quite specific in what you're targeting just by your hook length. So it's something worth mentioning. You might think that, all your hook lengths want to be the same length, but depending on the venue and how aggressive the fish is feeding, is how long a hook length you want as well.
Cool. I think that's really good advice about the Olivet distance from the hook and moving it up to give them more chance to see it on the way down.
Like I say, show them the bait.
Yeah.
Show them the perch. Whereas with tench, it's more sort of holding the bait and keeping it still on the bottom.
Yeah. Alex, I think we're going to have to draw the podcast to a close because we're having all sorts of technical issues with the Wi-Fi. You can't hear at your end, but the volume is very strange on your phone. It's not your phone; it's the Wi-Fi connection.
Right.
Yeah. So I've got you perfectly now. So for everybody listening, I will do my best to try and equalise the volume as Alex is talking. However, now my camera is. We have got gremlins today. My camera's gone completely out of focus again. I don't know what is going on. I can't wait till we can actually sit in the same room and do the podcast like we used to, because something's going on today. It's just going to make this a nightmare. Like my camera's now.
Maybe it's your friends that live in your house.
The ghosts.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw a shadow today against the wall. I'm not joking. Yeah. Big dark shadow, and I thought someone was on the roof and moving across the skylight. Honestly, big shadow. It just moved across the wall, and I sat there looking at it, going, "I think you're right." Today I sat near the computer so I could just have a different backdrop. Why did I bother? I should have stayed in the kitchen. Probably that's what it is. The ghosts don't like me being here. They want me to be back in the kitchen, so I think it's that. But my camera keeps going in and out of focus. I can't hear you. We keep losing connection with you as well at the shop. Oh, it's a nightmare. So April the 12th, does that mean we can actually be in the same room, do the podcast? Yeah. Oh, Lord, that's good. So we've got probably one more podcast, maybe 2 more like this, and then we can do it properly.
One more, won't it? One more.
Yeah.
Maybe 2, yeah.
Maybe 2, I don't know. Be great. Anyway, buddy.
Yeah.
Great perch advice. If anyone's got any and tench advice on the worm, so guys, get out there last few days of the season, and yeah, get into a few stripies or the old tinkers because they're definitely on the move.
And Rudd. And Rudd will have it as well.
They will. Yeah, I've caught some clonking rudd when I've been perch fishing. yeah. They will a bit suicidal. If you've got any questions for Alex on his rigs for worm fishing, messages on Tales from the Tackle Shop, or he's very bored during the day, so you can phone him on the Tackle and Baits number because he's got nothing to do because no one talks to him. So give him a bell. And yeah, we'll be into the throes of the close season once we have the next podcast. And I think we're going to try and have the footage for a couple of commercial videos at Rookery as well. So I think we're gonna target Crow Lake first, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah,
cool,
definitely.
All right, buddy. Anything else you want to add this evening?
No. Just hope that Newcastle get another win. Got to win the next 4 games.
Are massive for us, I think.
You're doomed, aren't you?
Yeah, otherwise we're going to be playing. Well, can't say Norwich anymore, so they look like they're coming up. Don't they?
No.
Ipswich might come up and we go down.
What, you're going to go down 2 leagues?
Oh no, they might come up a league.
Oh God, yeah, I don't know. Right, buddy, we're going to draw it to an end because I've lost you again on the volume. I can only just hear you. So, one of those things. Anyway, I'd like to thank everybody for listening and say this has been Tales from the Tackle Shop, a Fenland Fishing TV production.